What's up, YouTube? Mr. Lamessy here, and today we're going to talk about mana regeneration. That's right, Diablo 4 has a slightly annoying resource reduction within it, or resource spending within it, that I think can be quite annoying for the player as they are playing throughout the game. And so a lot of people come into my channel and they see me running my ice shards build, and I'm just blasting ice shards and my mana staying high, and they're like, yo man, what's up? Like, how can I get this as well? Now, this will probably give a little bit of help to some other classes and stuff as well. However, I do think this is a little bit more specific to the Sorceress, as we're going to talk specifically about the Sorceress, right? So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look. Now, what I mean by this is, let me just go to some like area to go kill things. We'll just run outside here really fast. So the way that resource management works within this game is it's a generator spender style that they've built, right? The idea is your basic skills are going to be the ones that are going to be generating the resource, and then you're going to be spending the resource with all of your other skills.
Not while I'm in town.
Man, that was a long way to get out of town. So we can go and we can find some mobs and we can get in here. And we can see that I'm able to pretty much go ahead and spend like crazy and burn through all my stuff. This is really laggy, actually. And my resource and mana is able to stay pretty high, right? So how are we doing this? What are we doing to make this possible? Let me just go really quickly to town and we can go through the various ways that we're doing it. Number one is I don't like using spenders, or I don't like using generators. The basic skills are quite annoying in this game, so I want to avoid to do this. So I wanted to find as many ways to generate mana as I possibly could. And if we start, we can actually go to mana here. If we start in the skill tree, we can just start and take a look. So the first thing is there is plus to max mana right here on Devastation. I do get 3 of it because I want this back nodes. I'm not really caring beyond that though. We can continue to look and see, why does this have mana on it? I don't even see where it says mana right there. But we can continue to go down the list and take a look. We can see while ice armor is active, your mana regen is increased by 25%. So I like this right here. Just gives you a small boost for your ice armor. Additionally, this one is for right here is a big one. Lucky Hit is a massive place for your Sorceress to get mana regen. So really the bottom of the skill tree is where you're going to get a lot of this from. This is Lucky Hit. Cold damage against vulnerable enemies has up to a 20% chance to generate 15 mana. Now, if we are going to have a lot of vulnerable enemies, which we do, our entire build, especially if we go to like our Frost Nova right here. Frost Nova makes enemies vulnerable. And then on top of that, I also have just vulnerable hitting enemies with ice shards in a single cast makes them vulnerable as well. So between these two things, I'm getting a lot of vulnerable enemies. And of course, the really nice thing about that is then I get up to a 20% chance to generate 15 mana. So that's a great way to get my resource. Additionally, I have Avalanche right here, which is your frost skills have, and this is Lucky Hit, have up to a 10% chance to make your next cast consume no mana. It also will deal increased damage, and it's doubled against vulnerable enemies, which is really nice. And again, if everything's vulnerable, that means that we have a 20% chance, right? To make our next cast consume no mana. So between this and this, that already gives us a lot just from our Lucky Hit, which of course means we're going to want to put stats into, for instance, Precision Magic. Your Lucky Hit chance is increased by 15%, right? So that is the start. Additionally, within my Paragon board on the Legendary Node Elemental Summoner board right here, I went ahead and grabbed the mana nodes. this is just an additional 28 mana, which I just thought was helpful overall for my character. So it wasn't too far off the line of everything else. Just kind of while I'm bridging, I just go down and grab those. I like having that little additional mana. So that's the first couple of places that I get a little bit more. Now, beyond that, there are the affixes and the aspects on your gear that are going to help overall. So we can go ahead and start and look for what we have here. The first one that you may have is some sort of resource reduction. Let me see if I have it on. Here we go. So my amulet's great with it. I have 20.9% mana cost reduction right there. So that is going to be really helpful because now, of course, my skills are going to be costing less mana, which is going to be improving it over time. And then additionally, you can see I have an aspect right here that's if I'm above mana, I get increased crit strike, which is great. So that is more incentive to have that. So mana cost reduction is one of them. Another one is going to be resource generation. I actually don't think I'm running any resource generation on any of my gear. Let me move my camera really fast. It's not as good of a skill overall. Here you can see I have more mana cost reduction, so that is helpful there. But what I do like is this lucky hit up to a 5% chance to restore 17.3% primary resource. I think that is actually a decent node. Yes, it's only 5% chance, but if you get this on like a couple of pieces of gear, that's a lot of primary resource that you can be restoring just from getting those hits, right? So additionally, it's just kind of looking at that. Can I get more mana cost reduction? Can I get more of that? Additionally, I've said that multiple times. You can get plus to maximum mana, which can be a nice thing to roll in like a ring or something. Getting all that additional mana can be helpful in just having a higher stack. So then when you do restore a percentage, you're restoring more. That being said, what I recommend, because I'm not even running any of that, what I really recommend is looking to just increase your lucky hit chance. So here you can see I have stuff like this. Look at this aspect. Your lucky hit chance is increased by 15%. I actually don't even have it maxed right now. Up to 20% while you have a barrier active. Well, of course, what do we have going on with this build? We have everything giving me barriers, right? So again, if we look at my skill tree, it's like I'm generating barriers just on all of my, that's for vulnerable, sorry. I'm generating barriers from my iced armors, from my flame shields. I also have every single time I use a skill, I generate a barrier. Every time you spend 100, or this one, using a cooldown grants 30% of your max life as a barrier for 2 seconds. So protection is a huge node right there for you to grab because again, teleport will do it. Ice Armor will do it. Frost Nova will do it. Flame Shield will do it. Deep Freeze will do it. 5 of my skills, many of which aren't crazy long cooldowns. That's a 5.85 second cooldown, 12.97. This is 16.01, but I get 2 charges. This is 12.97. Many of those I can kind of chain together, right? I use a skill, then I use teleport a couple seconds later, then I use this a couple seconds later. And so every time that I'm doing that, I'm getting this additional 30% max life as a barrier. And then, of course, that's on top of the fact that I also have Flame Shield and Ice Armor, which are also giving me barriers, right? So everything is just giving me the barrier overall, which is super helpful. So having that is important. So what does this, of course, mean for the rest of our gear as well? Well, it means we also want to dive into cooldown reduction because the lower my cooldowns are, the more I can keep my cooldowns up, the more I can get my barriers, the more lucky hit chance I'm going to get. So you can see everything kind of like chains off of each other for all of these pieces. So I have cooldown reduction here, I have cooldown reduction over here, I have cooldown reduction right here. I actually need a better focus to get higher cooldown reduction. But you can see that I'm chaining that really across all of my gear. So again, we're increasing our lucky hit chance whenever we can with that. And then overall, I'll get to that in a second. you can see my lucky hit chance bonus is 41.1%, because there's also the implicit 15% on the wand. And so I have 41.1%, and then also this lucky hit base, right, 5% chance to gain this 17.2% mana. And so with this, I have a lot of lucky hit, which means my avalanche is going off often, so I'm getting free cast of skills. I'm getting the chance to then gain resource back from the skills, the chance to gain resource back from the 5% chance to restore primary resource. And between all of that, you're going to find that you're able to generally keep your mana pretty high. Now, if you still need a little bit more help, or you just want a little bit more for whatever reason, there is also, of course, Prodigy, which is an aspect that is in your codex, but you can also find a higher one. The codex will only be 15. And this is using a cooldown restores 15 to 25 mana, which again, if we're running a build that tries to rely on using all of our skills kind of at a nice stagger, we're using cooldowns over and over and over, which means I'm constantly getting 22 mana, 22 mana, 22 mana, 22 mana. And so this is kind of paying for itself a lot of times, right? A lot of my skills that you're going to be seeing are going to be, okay, this costs X amount of mana, but I get some of that back, right? Every time. This is a very good aspect, which is quite helpful in just getting you a little bit more. Now, there are even additional aspects that will give you even more beyond that. So we can look in here, and let me see if I can find it really fast. Gain 14% of your primary resource for every 25% of your life that you heal. So if you have a build where you're doing a lot of healing, this can be another way to get a little bit more. There is also... that's prodigies again. I've got a lot of aspects. There's also one that just purely gives you like 2, 3, or 4 resource. Where is it? Oh, we're gonna find it. Maybe not. Is it in the codex? Okay. Codex resource. Restore one of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. And this, I believe, rolls 1 to 4 overall. So, how many times are we crowd controlling an enemy? All the time. Crowd control is chilling them, slowing them, freezing them. Anything is crowd controlling the enemy. So every time you cast Frost Nova, every time that you hit them with your ice shards, every time anything, this is going to generate you primary resource. This is another decent aspect that you can play around with. And then lastly, the one that I would say that you could go for is there's one more aspect that gives you a second roll of Avalanche. I don't know if I have it in here. I don't really keep it very much. But essentially, it lets Avalanche have a second roll of it, which means you're then getting a second time where it's going to give you the mana cost of 0, and it's going to give you that increased damage as well on it. So that is also quite a nice aspect and something that you can look at putting on your gear. So again, to kind of sum it all up and recap it all, I have a little bit of max mana to get me to 131, just because I want to be able to stay over 100 to get that nice bonus from the aspect. Then additionally, I have very important skills, which is Frigid Breeze, Avalanche, Protection to keep my barrier up, and then Precision Magic for the lucky hit. That's the important stuff. This is like okay, just a little bit of mana regen. It's not as good though as the other stuff. And then on our gear, we have mana cost reduction and cooldown reduction for a lot of places. And then nice aspects like lucky hit chances increased while you have barrier. So you want to be decreasing the mana cost, decreasing your cooldowns, and increasing your lucky hit chance. And when you get these three pieces really working in fine tune, like a nice machine right there, you're not going to have mana problems much at all. When I run out of mana problems, when I run out of mana, I'm always surprised. I'm always like, oh my gosh, my lucky hit just like failed over and over and over again for me to actually get down that low and run out of mana. So it can be pretty tough. The only place you might see yourself running out of mana is if you're just going against one monster, fighting it like a boss or something with nothing else to hit around you. That will generally make it a little bit harder. Because there is some like benefit to being able to, crowd control multiple monsters and hit multiple monsters at the same time to keep your mana up. So sometimes it'll go down a little slower that way, but then you just kind of use your cooldowns, you get it back up, you get a lucky hit, and you're right back in the game. It's all good again. So it's generally not too bad overall. So hopefully that is helpful. That helps you learn how to keep your mana a little bit higher, a little bit better, and it makes the game more enjoyable because again, the spender generator is just really generator spender system is just not super fun to like use a basic skill that is pointless and you don't care about just so you can get your mana up to use the skills you do like. So avoiding it, I definitely recommend. Anyways, with that being said, hope you guys have a good one, YouTube. Mwah. Feel free to leave comments, questions below, and I'll get to them. Peace, everybody.